Okay, let's look at Strauss on the point of the Zeus Meliachos, or the Zeus that can be propitiated, or the chthonic Zeus. Um, and let's consider the point of Tzedakah, or righteousness, as this Septuagint has felt it wise to present it to us as some form, so as the superlative form of the word dikeos, or something along those lines. Dike, usually understood as the center of the central question of the Plato's Politeia, or Republic, along with the Agathon. So in someone's reputed to be a distant, like more than 100 years earlier, Solon, relative of Plato, we get the, but they're in the same family, we can assume they're thinking about things, and maybe they have the same tradition, maybe not. Families could be at odds and think differently, but maybe Solon, because he was a public man and because he has altered the laws, we can understand his statement as being in some way having a special dignity or authority. He says, when Thalassa, the C, so the A at the end of the word signals that this is a feminine, is windswept, then we're beset upon by troubles. But when the winds subside, then we have DKO kata, DKO kate, DKO kate. Because the word, that's the way the superlative of DK is when it's linked up to a feminine, when it's genitive, from feminine word, which can follow the definite article, or so-called noun, in the misleading modern way of stating it. So when the sea is beset upon by waves, we have a bad state understood as a, remember, we have the metaphor of the ship of state and Theseus and so on. And when it is becalmed, we have decay, or the same thing as was being discussed in the Politeia. So it's like something's already there, and can we sort of keep to it and have it at the right state, propitiate it in a certain sense, if we take it in this chthonic Zeus way. And so remember, so chthonic Zeus. So I think that sort of the locus classicus on this is, so far as I know, is the big authority on it is Jane Ellen Harrison and her books on the Greek religion, on this chthonic Zeus. But this Zeus is closely associated with Athens, and we have in Plutarch and in Pausanias and Apollodorus, I think, testimony to this connection between Theseus, who's the main hero in Athens, the hero of the democracy, basically, democratic Athens, um, as slaying some bandit who was known for tying people to pine trees that had been leaned down, and then they would be sort of slingshotted or something, or torn apart if they were tied to something else. But it said when Theseus finished this act, he went to in order to remove the miasma from the evil criminal, or the sociopath criminal who had been murdering these people in the along the road with the pine trees. He went to a shrine of Zeus Melenkios. I think it's supposed to be pronounced with the Lee in it. Melenkios, something like that. Or this propitiable Zeus, the special Zeus connected to Athens, in order to remove the miasma, the contact with this individual, with this highwayman or whatever. So we have a connection between Plato and the special chthonic Zeus. And so in the nomoi, or laws, it's the only time when Socrates is shown to be engaging in political life, because in the Politeia, it's a thinking about something. It's in we build the Republican speech, but in the nomoi, the laws, there's a meeting of the old. So Socrates supposedly took the suggestion of Crito, and Socrates had this problem that he could flee to a nearby state like that was a law-abiding city-state, like I don't know, Thebes or something, or he could go, not Thebes in Egypt, but Thebes closer to Athens. But if he were to do that, people would know him, and since they would know he ran away instead of faced the laws, Epiphany, then he would be discredited. His ethos cred would be, it'd have no credential. It'd be uncredentialed, as it were. Because he would try to say, here I'm giving this teaching about piety and about all these things, but I've not faced up to the citizens in Athens. That shows the attitude of somebody who's part of the it's interesting because it's not it's part of the world of those Greek policies, because even the neighboring policies would recognize the same things that were at work. There's a certain sense where it's just like you couldn't get away with certain things. More than that, the mentality is collective somehow, in the pre-liberal states, as they were. The states where you can be put to death for speech and for thinking in the wrong way. So, I mean, yeah, that's always true in a certain sense, in that it just wasn't pushed in America until the late 60s. Because, I mean, the sort of axis mundi on that is probably the statement by Potter Stewart in the case on obscenity. I know it when I see it. This is obviously a move into the confusion about even what the gods of the city demand, as it were. Vis-a-vis laws, anyway, vis-a-vis anything written down, is that I know it when I see it, but then that means it can't be put down in the text. Plato has this problem with text, so maybe one is led to wonder in a certain way whether this is a problem of text. But the other book where Plato deals especially with text, according to Strauss, is the Phaedrus, which is about the trip to Eros, understood as the Aristos Eros, or the thing that points towards what's agathon or good. But it's also explicitly about speeches. Socrates and these others are the lovers of discourse, speeches, and one of them's memorized one. So this, I try to set, so what I've set up here, I think I'll do part 2 directly of this, with what's set up here, because we've prepared sort of a lot of notions that need to be compared to, brought into contact with the maybe Patrick Deneen and maybe some modern issues to see where Strauss stands vis-a-vis this Thalassa version of justice, which seems in a way to correspond to natural right, but we have to distinguish sharply how he thinks of natural right as against what's happening with these epiphanies or showings of the god in the Nomoi. So because you could listen to what Strauss says himself on this in his introduction to the laws, but it's very complicated to repeat because of the issues that he was studying revelation or prophecy in the Jewish sources, and then he had to go to Avicenna and then to the earlier Farabi, who had made a so-called paraphrase of Plato's laws and considered it the most important text on revelation or prophecy. So we have a lot of complicated issues involved there, and one is this question sort of whether a particularly Athenian form of Zeus, the chthonic Zeus, is brought into Plato's Nomoi because even though in all the regular sources the father of Minos is Zeus, the Olympian Zeus, since it's Plato dealing with Crete and with the descendants of Minos and walking towards this great cave around Ida that sinks deep down into the earth, rather than, say, Moses, who receives or Moses who meets with Hashem face to face, like a man meets with his friend on at least twice on Mount Horeb, and then I think a number of times later after they come down from Mount Horeb. Mountains and the dreadful things that happen in mountains as against this chthonic things. As you remembered, it's sort of like the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses. It was a very tense exchange, okay? Whereas, true, it's much more softened in the Quran version. But this is also interesting to show the interaction between Farabi and Strauss on this point. but not just for those personalistic reasons, but because it touches directly on the question of law. So we're basically going towards um, the question of law in this whole tradition, which then, um, yeah, it plays a considerable role today. In Iran, for instance, in the question of the uh, different types of Iranian piety.